First of all, thank you so much for hosting me here. And I should begin by saying that I absolutely love the theme today. I love the universality of it because it's something I think which happens to pretty much all our lives. And things happen, events happen, there are so many things which we never understand what the impact of that is and what it will actually do to us over a period of time. I'm here to therefore share how my life has taken me to where it is today, and incidentally how it has therefore sort of walked along the way the fashion industry in India has also evolved in the past 30 years. So when the theme was given to me, I was very sure of what I wanted to narrate and what I wanted to speak to you about. But what I wasn't very clear in my head about was how do I put it visually, because for me, sometimes the image speaks 1,000 words, and I wanted to do it the same way here. But just as everything in life is preordained, I think it was one lazy Saturday about 2 weeks back when I decided to go and see the recently opened Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore. And suddenly the exhibit there and the way that whole space is, every visual started to talk to me, and that's how this presentation came about. So big thanks to the exhibit of Jyoti Bhatt, who's a very accomplished black and white photographer and an artist. So there are many images in this presentation which are his, and of course some of them are the ones that I have taken myself. Let me now take you back a little to my earliest memory when I was a child, and I used to tag along with my mother, who was a very big handloom enthusiast as well as a connoisseur of textile. In hindsight, I really think that that was the osmosis kind of a process that led me to sort of fall in love with textiles. It sort of happened very subconsciously, and I don't know when it sort of became a dream for me to actually work in this space. I started to feel that this is an area which needed its due respect. It needed to be seen as the way it is meant to be seen. It was also something where I used to, and this, you must understand, this is like I'm talking early 80s. So it's not the kind of scene where you see it today. And that is where, you would almost look down upon, let's say, somebody who was in a creative field or who was a darzi, and without really actually realizing that that itself is another skill and craftsmanship. So I think and I've chosen to call this theme Choices and Chances, and I think in my life I have always been driven a lot by these alternate thoughts and contrarian choices. To begin with, I would say that in spite of all this love for textiles, I actually went on to do mathematics honors from St. Stephen's, and I thought I loved it because it gave me the sense of logic. However, then I went quickly back to what I really wanted to do, but then again I did not choose to do design because I thought design is something which has to be in you. It is something which either exists in you or it doesn't. Now that's not to say that design doesn't need to be learned, but I think inherently I feel that it is something which you have. And I therefore chose to say that I would like to actually understand the management of design. I would like to understand how one needs to communicate design, how one needs to make the audience aware of it, how does one understand that what is the beauty of all that goes behind it. Which again was not enough, and ironically I ended up being in my first role, which was about design. So I started off as a design person for the brand Allen Solly. And if you ask me why I did that, I suddenly during the course of it realized that if you don't know the product enough, you cannot market it. So you have to first understand the product, you have to first be aware of it, you have to have the full knowledge about what a product means. Only then can you effectively market it. And then from there, I went on to also decide as to what should I be taking up after my when the placements happened. And this is when I again perhaps did something which I would call contrarian if I look back, because this was again in early 90s when the fashion industry was only evolved up to a point when it was about exports and the domestic had not even started to come in. Domestic was something which was a very, very nascent industry, and I think very few people actually chose to work in the domestic industry. Now, this was again a choice as to whether one should do more of the same or should one be doing and following the belief of less is more. In any career, and I think this is something which I really swear by, that there is a need for this whole jigyasa, there is this whole need for knowing what's next, there is this need to be inquisitive, the need for being restless where you are. And why is it so important? Well, it is important, I think, first of all, to be able to come out of a comfort zone, because while it is important that one becomes an expert in their space, and I think I truly value that when you are an expert and therefore you speak from that space, but at the same time, if you continue to do more of what you have done and you haven't really seen the outer world, you haven't really sort of understood as to what can be done better, if you haven't really experienced something beyond your known space, that does not necessarily take you to a point where you are able to evolve. So thankfully I would say that during the 30 years, I think the fashion industry was as volatile as well, and it actually kept giving me opportunities to move from homegrown brands to department stores to ethnic wear becoming, so to say, professional and coming out of the by lanes, or even later into the onslaught of when the global economy opened up, lots of international brands came in, and then finally the e-commerce. I'm glad that I've been part of that wave and I have been able to sort of move around with the fashion industry. There's also another classical thought which I tend to sort of question a lot of times, that as to the fact that what is our destination? What do we want to, typically we are asked that where do you see yourself in 10 years, where do you see yourself in 20 years? And I know the value of that because it's about having a vision, but I think sometimes we just overemphasize it. We sometimes just forget that what do we need to do today to be able to be there? What do we have to actually be driven by today? What is it that I'm doing something today which I enjoy, which I really want to pursue, which I really think is going to make me happy now and later when I look back. And I think it's therefore not so much about always success, but it's also about the drive that you have all through. So I also believe that there is absolutely no golden time in your career. There is absolutely no perfect time in your career. But yes, being at the right place at the right time is definitely the right thing to be. And it's with gratitude, and I think I appreciate the fact that I have been able to do that with the support of the industry. And I have actually been able to, like I mentioned earlier, move along with the new things that kept emerging in the fashion industry, and which finally, of course, led me to where I am today, which is about handloom.